Hi everybody, Armour Pants here and welcome back on channel. I have another video for you. This time we are going to have a complete guide to the Vickers Light, the Tier 10 British light tank. Now this is quite an exciting one because this is the first time I'm going to review a light tank where we can actually use the spotting and scouting indices which we recently calculated, so looking forward to that. Now in terms of the tank itself, if we look at its equipment loadout on Blitz hanger, in terms of provisions, I would run T, pudding and T and improved fuel. That's going to max out the performance of this tank. I would then, in terms of equipment, I would run gun rammer, supercharge, and vertical stabilizer because it's a light tank, so you're going to fire a lot when you're moving. Then I would run improved modules. I would run enhanced armor. And I would run enhanced tracks, I would run improved optics, I would run engine accelerator, and I would run consumable delivery system. Now, if you're wondering why to run enhanced armor, I'm going to show you why when we look at the armor profile, and you're going to have a look at that in action during the game. So that should be a good tip for you. And in terms of engine accelerator, well, although this tank is really fast, and you're going to have a look at its mobility index and scouting index, it's very good. It does have poor power to weight ratio on hard and medium terrain, so therefore engine accelerator is a good option to increase that mobility, because obviously a light tank, its best armor is its mobility, right? Now, in terms of the gun, it has 105mm gun, which is pretty good. By the way, the gun system of this tank is excellent. You're really going to enjoy it, and you're going to get a lot of very, very good shots using this tank. Using this tank's gun system. Now, in terms of the gun system itself, the 105mm gun, it has decent pen. Standard round is APCR. It's going to give you 240 millimeters of pen. Going to do 350 damage. Your pen goes up to 290 with heat, which is your Pramo, and HE. Well, HE. Here's the thing, right? HE is HESH, right? So it actually is going to run you up to 105 millimeters of pen. Now, you may want to then run calibrated shells because then that goes up to 116. It's up to you. I prefer with light tanks to fire more often. And this tank, for a light tank, does have a relatively long reload at 6.5 seconds. If you run calibrated shells, it goes up to 7 seconds. So it's up to you guys. It depends on how much you're going to use the HESH, right? So, I mean, HESH is a great round. The HESH in this tank, by the way, is going to be running you 440 damage. So it's, you know, nice big roll. I mean, that's kind of heavy tank roll in light tank. So therefore, it depends really on how much you're going to use HESH. I would recommend using HESH, of course, because it's able to ramp up your damage. However, in terms of muzzle velocity, the heat and HESH rounds have only 1525, whereas the APCR round has a 1921 meters per second muzzle velocity, which is really, really good, right? It's one of the best in Blitz, and that's what adds into this gun handling. Now, in terms of its gun handling index, it's 19.2, which is really excellent. So you're going to get a lot of really good shots in this tank. It's not going to let you down. The gun handling is very, very good in this tank. You're going to be able to make a lot of good shots. Its mobility index is 17.5, so it's really good. I mean, it's not as good like as let's say an RE251 or something like that, but it's really, really good. It's up there, one of the best. And its spotting index is, its spotting index is 0.71, right? So it's very similar to the FE301, which we looked at in the video. And then if you multiply the spotting index by the mobility index to get the scouting index of 24.7, so it's a little bit better than its Tier 8 and Tier 9 equivalents. Obviously not as good as an RE251, but then very few tanks are because of the RE251's mobility. But overall, what does this tell us? It tells us this is a great scouting vehicle, a great spotting vehicle, great gun handling, great mobility, right? Those indices, however you want to say it, when you stack up against its competitors, very, very strong tank. Now, if we look at other benefits of this tank, well, its top speed, 65 kilometers per hour, 23 in reverse, but it also has 10 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of elevation, so it's excellent gun alignment as well. So you're probably thinking, well, is there anything wrong with this tank? Well, obviously it's a light tank, right? And you're up with the big boys. And if we now look at the armor profile, we'll see that it doesn't really have any armor, right? Or does it? Here's the rub, right? This metal plate here, which we're looking at on the front of the tank, is going to give you 220 plus millimeters of armor. And if you angle that right, so if you're facing out to the enemy and angle that right, you can get 3, 4, sometimes more relative armor numbers on that tank, right? So it's really good. So you can get some bounces up, which is why I recommended using the enhanced armor, which you normally wouldn't do in a light tank, but I recommended this. And you're going to see 2 massive bounces in the gameplay we're going to look at with this tank. From big guns, by the way, so definitely worth considering, and that's what I run when I play this tank. Now, you can see it doesn't really have too much armor anywhere else, but it does have that big gun mantle and has that 10 degrees of gun impression, so you can go hold down this tank. And if you're going hold down, you want to do sneak a peek or whatever, sneak a boom, peek a boom, whatever you want to call it. You know, using the APCR shell is good alternative, not because it is the fastest round. And obviously, the speed at which the round leaves the muzzle and hits the target enables you to be more effective at peek-a-boom. If we look at the tank front on, obviously not much armor expected, but again, you still see that yellow there. That's that metal armor. That's that plate in the top part of the hull, just below the turret, and that can be effective. Now, this is not a tank that actually existed in the battlefield, but it did exist on paper, the blueprints, and the drafting was done as experimental light tank created after the Second World War, sort of something that could compete in the Cold War and replace the Cromwell. But after the drafting phase and the development of Soviet tanks, it was thought that it wouldn't be competitive enough for the battlefield, and it was dropped. So not a real tank, but a real tank in that it was at least was designed and existed at the drafting stage of the project. Okay, so let's have a look at the gameplay and let's have a look at some of the characteristics of the tank that we spoke about and see how they are in action. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at a mastery game. We're going to have a look at it on Yamamoto Harbor, and while we are waiting players, and what we do always is we're going to have a look at the setup. We're going to check what's on the other team. So there's another Vickers Light on the other team. So that means that basically your spotting and scouting indices are negated because you have the same tank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blast up, use the speed of the tank to get to the hill to the left of C as we look here and see who I can spot up. You can see here we have our first customers. I'm checking to see what else is there. I've got the WZ coming as well. Now, if you look here to the right, guys, our AMX-30B, I don't really know what he's doing. And this is why, you know, before you play tanks, you should really look at a guide, whether it's my one or somebody else's, right? But, you know, somebody who knows what they're talking about. Because in this position here, this map at sea is perfect for the AMX-30B, right? It has powerful gun, it has really strong turret armor, and it has good gun depression. So it can dominate sea. You can go to sea, you can pop over the rise at sea and really dominate the enemy. And instead, he's in a position where he's not really doing anything. He's sort of in between rock and a hard place, and he's not really doing anything. So I move over to try to help him. I put a round into the Vickers on the way. The T-54 and the WZ are concentrating on him, so I'm hoping I can get a couple of other shots like that one. Do take one from the WZ. The WZ is unusual in that, you know, it has a really big gun for a medium tank. It does a lot of alpha. So you don't want to get hit with that, especially when you are in a light tank like me. Thankfully, my allies are pushing around. It allows me to pop over, get those couple of shots and take out the T-54 and do some damage on WZ. Now I'm going to cap. Capping is really important. A player over there camping in T-62A, don't really know what he's doing. He really needs to watch the medium tank guide or any medium tank guide or T-62 guide or something. But I mean, camping in a T-62, that is not really helping your team at all. And basically, him sitting up there as a TD role in what is a really effective medium tank with really good rate of fire and some decent turret and frontal armor, basically allowed us to overwhelm the flank at sea and push across. And now we're moving into a flanking position. I'm able to clear the flank, make sure there's nobody there. And now we're going to come in, and you see we've got some targets here. We've got the Kranwagen. T-62 now has gone up there. I don't really know what he's doing. Now he decides to go front on when he has hardly any hit points left. Strange decision. But this game, by the way, is quite close, right? So you can see here it's 4v4. It goes down to 2v2 in the end. And it is quite close. I think looking at the game, and the game, as we say, it's always about thinking. I know the game is going to be really, really close, so therefore I think it might come down to points, which is why I'm desperate to cap A. Firstly, to stop them getting points, but then also to give us additional points. I also was able to take it to T62, which is an added bonus. Now I'm coming back around here again. I'm playing kind of cat and mouse. We're down to 3v3 now. And here, look at that bounce. Boom. Look at that bounce. Over 400 alpha bounce from the IS-4. And that is exactly what I was talking to you about, that metal plate. Now, look, you can't always guarantee you're going to get a bounce like that as we go 3v2 down here. You can't always guarantee you're going to get a bounce like that when you are facing a gun like that. But by angling the metal plate on the tank and of course using the enhanced armor to give you that extra 5%, that's a 5% more chance of getting that bounce, yes, then you can, of course. Now, I take one here from the ML2. I didn't think he was facing up to me. I thought he was going to be looking at the AMX, but he didn't. I think another one. Bit of poor play for me there. I was watching the mini map and not watching where his muzzle was facing, so probably, if anything, I was trying to be too clever there instead of just doing the basics. But thankfully now, they're concentrating on the ML and on our AMX. They're trying to take him out, and that allows me to take them out, put one right through the drive wheel. Our MX 50B there does a nice nosedive off, nice bit of tanking there. I thought he might have gone into the fucking drink there, and I'd be left on my own against the Cranwagon, which is not what you want. But we now have a points advantage, and you're going to see another bounce coming up here off the Cranwagon. All right, so he's occupied with the AMX, but now he decides to concentrate on me. I put one into him here, and look at this bounce here. Boom! Exactly off the same part of the tank that we got the bounce off the IS-4. Obviously some luck involved, but as we've said before, anybody who tells you there's no luck involved in getting a mastery game is lying to you, because there's always an element of luck involved, which puts you over that additional XP that gives you that mastery game. You can see there over 1600, 1623 XP delivered. You can see here as we look at the details, spotting on the T54, we've got some damage onto the Vickers Light, the WZ, took out the T62A. So basically engagement with nearly all targets, either through spotting or direct damage on the enemy team, which is great and a great contribution, and a nice game for myself in the AMX, and a nice rescue from a 2v3 situation. So overall, guys, I think that was a good representation of how to play this tank, a good representation of and a good example of how effective it can be. And remember, its key attributes are its speed, its mobility index, its scouting and spotting indices, and its gun handling. And you saw there, I'm able to get around the map, play it all the way around in a 270-degree arc from C, then spotting up B, then to A. Bit of luck with the two bounces, but you make your own luck, right? As Greg Norman said, the more I practice, the luckier I get, by setting up the tank in a way which at least gives you a better chance of getting those bounces. And don't forget that metal plate at the front can give you some better, not front on, but when you angle it like that, and you saw the tank shape vis-a-vis the red, whether it's the IS-7 or the Cranwagon, when those two bounces were achieved, was exactly the same, pointing out and showing that front metal plate, heavily armored plate. And then, of course, by maneuvering back and forth, you're creating those relative armor angles that allow you to get that bounce. So guys, I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it enjoyable. This tank is all about its mobility. It's all about getting out there and spotting. You're the eyes of your team. And once, of course, then you can remove your rival eyes, in our case, the WZ, the T62, and the other Vickers Light, then you have an advantage because you're going to see the enemy first, as we discussed in the spotting and scouting indices video. So guys, I hope you found that enjoyable, hope you found it useful. And now I guess all remains for me to say is cheers, Mush, and as always, pants off.